reality is justice there for all of we. The Ministry of Justice has trained more than 5,600 persons in restorative justice practices. More than 200,000 victims have been supported by the victim services. Legal aid has reached thousands island-wide. Make we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today. Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Na 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 na. We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. Want we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence the one.
So who keeps our taxpayer money in check? Well, the PAC and PAAC help watch over the country's budget. And one might sound like it just have an extra A, but they're way different. Here's how. The PAAC and PAC are two committees that watch the money. The Public Accounts Committee reviews government projects after them close. They do a post-audit check to see what problems arose with the costs and call officials to explain decisions that cause budget mismanagement. And then they recommend corrective action, so the problem will happen from when, not happen again. But what about the money we are spending right now, the PAAC? That's how Public Administration and Appropriations Committee pretty much means your money will protect as it happen, we check. While projects go on, things are accurate. As government spend the nation's budget, PAAC reviews it. They examine proposals and summon officials to find problems before them don't use it. So the PAC and PAAC are two parliamentary committees that watch over the country's wallet to protect the budget and keep it in check. And you can get involved. Just visit jampja.org.
For Jamaica. Yo, what are you? Oh, man, none of that. Yo, no, brother, no, man, mash up that, man.
You see you ever play ref? Dirty game,
yeah,
no
but
play.
I like a bad game. No, I said, place you come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, Bridging. No shake on, I can play a little ball, Bridging.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, Bridging. Just live good, man. Come together as one. I make the violence done.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
To fight crime and violence in your country, your government has invested over $9.7 billion into national security systems. This includes the construction and renovation of dozens of police stations, the acquisition of critical security equipment such as patrol vessels and police vehicles, the recruitment and training of more police officers, and the build-out of the Jamaica Defense Force. Your government is investing in your safety. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister. The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you thanks to the government's new social housing program specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Motorists, certificates of fitness are now digital. Here's how it works. First, make your payment at TAJ inline or online. Then, take your receipt along with your vehicle to an Island Traffic Authority service hub for physical inspection. A valid email address is required to receive your digital fitness. Once the inspection is complete, your certificate number will be sent directly to your email. To access your digital certificate, visit cgds.gov.jm/fitness, enter your certificate number and the chassis number, and view your certificate online. New validity periods are here. New vehicles, 5 years. Vehicles 10 years or less, 3 years. And those older than 10, 1 year. No more paper certificates. Just secure, digital access, anytime, anywhere. For more information, connect with us via email at info@ita.gov.jm or on social media at Island Traffic Authority.
Each year, the Jamaican Parliament approves billions in tax dollars to buy goods and services for Jamaicans. Awarding contracts to private companies to provide public goods and services is called public procurement, and it is a major hotspot for corruption. Can citizens spot the red flags in public procurement and help the government protect our taxes? Yes, they can. And here are 6 to watch for. Direct contracting. When contracts are frequently awarded to one supplier without other companies competing to offer a better price and quality, we usually end up paying more and getting less. Contract splintering. Big projects need big money and higher level approvals. But if the contract is cut up into smaller ones, it won't need external approval from offices like the Public Procurement Commission or Cabinet. This makes it easier for contracts to avoid additional scrutiny. Timing of advertisements. Contracts advertised during distracting periods like the holidays can result in less competition and a really strong advantage for the favored company. Like Christmas time, work slows down and companies are less attentive to business opportunities. Emergency contracting. Claiming emergencies allows officials to legally bypass normal procurement rules, making it easier to award contracts to favored companies. Contract timing. Contracts awarded just before or after election can be payback for campaign support and not based on what Jamaicans really need. Collusion. And what if penalties are not enforced when work is poorly done? This could be a contractor and public official working together for private benefit. And if it is, this is collusion. These flags do not prove corruption, but they trigger questions that citizens must ask. So mind your business, Jamaica. Visit the JAMP Procurement Tracker to monitor government contracts. If you spot these flags, use our ATI tool to ask questions and demand accountability.
Yo, babes, why me I call you so much time and I not get you? Sorry me lick you again yesterday. Yo, me know me mess up, but I can't wear them something there road and I expect me to react. I know me jealous and fool and easy to lose my temper, but call me back here. Still not get tired. Hey, girl, think me have to call your phone? You know who you are deal with? You think I want to lick me again next time? Eh?
It doesn't have to be this way. You can leave an abusive relationship. Just call 876-553-0372. We will help you.
I wonder who that somebody be. No, sir. Let me look for my glasses. Oh, that somebody look like Rice up. It's Lottie walk on. Me glad for see you, Roy. Although things never go on for you, America, me glad say you there.
Yeah.
Lift your head high.
Yeah.
Stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
And you can have a fresh start back home.
All right, Mr. D. Thanks, you hear?
Let's all work together for a fresh start back home.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table by the side or the back. You fi check out the servings, just do the maths. Not taking too much, finger below the facts. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table by the side or the back. Take note of the sodium, the sugars and the fats by percent. Less in the on the right track. You fi
from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, the National Health Fund, and Japan.
Me, I go show them my way of justice.
I'm abused.
I need legal advice. I don't deserve this.
The truth of the matter is, justice there for all of we. The Ministry of Justice has trained more than 5,600 persons in restorative justice practices. More than 200,000 victims have been supported by the victim services. Legal aid has reached thousands island-wide. Make we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today.
Do you wish there were a way your community could get funding to improve a school, health center, sports program, and more? There is! It's the Constituency Development Fund. Here are a few things you probably didn't know about the CDF and how you can make it work better for you. The CDF policy promotes citizen participation in community development and protection of taxpayers' funds. It outlines that MPs are to meet with citizens at least once every 2 years to agree on the projects needed. You know, it used to be once a year? We should really go back to that. Projects developed without community consultation are not to be approved by the bipartisan CDF Parliamentary Committee. There are 26 government agencies that implement projects, usually for a small fee. Funds are provided directly from the Office of the Prime Minister to the implementing agency, not through the Member of Parliament. The CDF unit monitors project costs and implementation, so if you have questions about how the CDF are run in your community, contact them. To ensure no one project or community gets all the funds, there are 6 project categories with spending limits for each. There must be no less than 5 and no more than 20 projects each year. To learn more, visit jampja.org to view your MP's CDF info and tell them how this fund has impacted you. If you don't see your MP's CDF reports, then put them under little pressure, man. Call, tweet, email. Ask them when they'll submit it and when is the next CDF meeting. Change is possible. It's already happening. What we need is you. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the private sector organization of Jamaica.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Na 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 na. We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. While we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence the world.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
To fight crime and violence in your country, your government has invested over 9.7 billion into national security systems. This includes the construction and renovation of dozens of police stations, the acquisition of critical security equipment such as patrol vessels and police vehicles, the recruitment and training of more police officers, and the build-out of the Jamaica Defence Force. Your government is investing in your safety. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Most Jamaicans will tell you corruption in politics is deep-rooted, and I just saw it said, and nothing can do about that. But actually, there is. and another 152 countries are doing it. It's called asset declaration, and it works best where citizens themselves understand it and help to ensure the law is enforced. Corruption happens when public officials abuse their power to benefit themselves, family, or associates. Jamaica's Integrity Commission Act was designed to prevent corruption, and here are 5 things you should know. 1. Under this law, every year MPs and senators must report what they earn, own, and owe, and if they don't, they'll be sanctioned. 2. Their report must include the same kind of information for their wife or husband and children. 3. If they get a gift worth more than $100,000 from anyone who's not family, they must declare it. 4. A summary of the declarations of our Prime Minister and opposition leader must be published where the public can read it. 5. Parliamentarians can now be prosecuted by the Integrity Commission. They can be fined up to $2 million or serve up to 2 years in prison if they don't file the declaration or if they give false information, and $500,000 for not filing on time or ignoring requests for information. Unfortunately, our parliamentarians made changes that prevent the public from knowing when they've broken the law or when they're being investigated. We really need to change that. Visit jampja.org to find out more about the act and to track if your MP is obeying this law. If they're not, JAMP's MP Tracker will help you write, tweet, or call your MP. Ask them, you submit your declaration yet? The Integrity Commission clear you? Let's help the Parliament stay honest. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you, thanks to the government's new social housing program specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister. The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Your government is empowering you through education, training, and development. That is why we have removed all fees for every Jamaican accessing training through the Heart NSTA Trust. So, whatever you desire training in, food and hospitality, beauty and cosmetology, housekeeping and hotel management, welding, carpentry, masonry, or any of the dozens of programs Heart offers, you can enroll completely free and change your life. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
What can a little germs do?
Pink eye running belly, even flu. Germs can make them happen to you.
Put germs on our manners with these. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Always wash your hand with water and soap. Keep dirty hands from your eyes and your nose and your mouth. You don't want to be sick, take care. Practice every day, no germs round here. A message from the Ministry of Health.
We want a piece for Jamaica. Yo, what are you? Oh man, none of that. No, brother, no, man.
You see how I'm a player? Dirty game,
yeah, but it's a bad game. No, I said, place when you come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, brethren. No shake on, I can play a little ball, brethren.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, brethren. Just live good, man. Come together, and make the violence done.
Every year, the Jamaican Parliament approves billions of our taxes to be spent on goods and services provided by the private sector. Everything from pens to power plants, cleaning services to construction are obtained through a process called public procurement. But who funds this process? Citizens do. And we want our taxes to be spent wisely. When we talk about public procurement, there's a critical concept called value for money. We hear it in the parliament all the time, but what does it really mean? Some think value for money means choosing the cheapest option, but it's more than that. For example, a community needs a new bridge, and the government receives bids from 3 companies. Company A offers to build it for $10 million in 18 months with a 50-year lifespan. Company B wants $12 million to finish in 12 months with a 75-year lifespan. Company C asks for $8 million, needs 24 months with a 25-year lifespan. Company B actually offers the best value for money. To determine that, we look for 4 crucial factors: economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. Let's explore what each means. For economy, we must look beyond the upfront price and consider the full lifetime costs to maintain the bridge. Cheaper options could lead to frequent and expensive repairs. We get efficiency if the bridge is built within budget and on time, with no waste of materials. To achieve this, we need the best team, and clear criteria helps the government to pick the best proposal. Effectiveness looks at whether the government achieves its goal. This could require a community needs assessment to ensure the bridge will reduce transport costs and travel time, withstand the annual flooding with little disturbance to plant and animal life. Finally, equity. This is about fairness, satisfying the different needs of the community. The bridge design considers not just cars and pedestrians, but is sensitive to the needs of the elderly, the disabled community, and children. So when we're talking about value for money, don't
perhaps flex hours could be applied to, but certainly in terms of the manufacturing industry generally, there might be some pushback, but only because of how the sector operates, which would demand the sort of 24-hour, well, consistent presence on the ground, etc. So if there are no questions, or you'll come back to it? All right, very well.
Since my presentation, I did some more research and found some information about the cost of commuting. And total vehicle running costs account for 23 to 30%. Or the petrol component of commuting costs is 25 to 30%. A 40-liter tank, right, in the US accounts to 3 to 4% of a worker's pay. So that contribution of workers' pay is 3 to 4%. However, in the Caribbean, it's 9.28%. So the costs are significantly higher for the Caribbean and certainly Jamaica. So it is a significant factor that we need to look at addressing.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Coe. All right, very well. So then we'll move on to the Ministry of Finance and the Public Sector. With us is the Financial Secretary, Ms. Darlene Morrison. Ms. Morrison, might I thank you for your attendance this morning. If you could just introduce your team as well for the record, and then we will begin with your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. With me today is Mr. Wayne Jones, Deputy Financial Secretary, Strategic Human Resources Management Division, and Mrs. Loy Walters, Principal Director, also in the Strategic Human Resources Management Division. Mrs. Walters will be doing the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Finsek. Ms. Walters, please, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. So, flexible work arrangements in the public sector. Modern work arrangements are instrumental to the future of work in Latin America and the Caribbean economies. And according to the World Bank 2025, these economies must reclaim a lost century of growth by reducing delays in learning how to learn and becoming learning economies through the experimental development process. Jamaica and its Latin American counterparts have not been agile enough in the adoption of technological advances and flexible ways of working. Therefore, as a country, Jamaica must seek to adopt and adapt flexible ways of working to strengthen economic resilience and achieve sustainable economic growth. Flexible work arrangements support productivity, business continuity, disaster resilience, and workforce modernization. When we use flexible work arrangements, once it is properly managed, we can harness the strengths of public and private sector by providing a national comparative advantage to our citizens, or employees, or employers in today's global marketplace. The staff orders for the public service outlines mechanisms to implement alternative work arrangements where possible. And the types it speaks about are flexible time, which is called flexible work arrangements, where employees start and finish work at different times to ensure the required coverage. However, there is a core time, ladies and gentlemen, in which employees are expected to be at work. You also have the compressed work week, where the employee works the usual full-time hours in fewer days by working longer blocks of time. And we also have telecommuting, which is an approved arrangement where an employee is required to perform specific work-related duties from home or other remote locations for a specific period. It is also called work from anywhere. Let me give you some background about flexible work arrangements. From as far back as 1976, flexible work arrangements was recognized by the government of Jamaica as a manpower planning tool or a workforce planning tool. In 2004, it was expanded through the staff orders, and it was called alternate work arrangements. The government of Jamaica, particularly through the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, developed an Employment Flexible Work Act, which is an enabling legislation from 2014. In 2020, COVID-19 stay-at-home orders accelerated remote work and hybrid work modalities. However, it slowed when we had the return to work orders. And so in 2026, circular number 2 was put out by the Ministry of Finance with effect from February 1 this year, and it facilitated the rollout of the staggered working hours policy. Who gives us that authority? The Ministry of Finance has that authority based on the Constitution, based on the assignments of subjects. And the Ministry of Finance is the central authority for public sector management, public sector modernization, compensation policy, strategic HR policy, and administrative reform. And so it uses various means to administer these policies, and such circulars and policy directives and policy instructions are some of those instruments. For the staggered working arrangements, what we have done it in a phased approach. Phase 1, the implementation of staggered working hours, and we are monitoring and doing that continuously and evaluating. And we are also using that to make adjustments as we go along. Subsequent phases will be hybrid work, telecommuting, and compressed work week. And we are constantly doing research on flexible work modalities and further monitoring and evaluation. The Ministry of Finance is very concerned, and the public service is very concerned about service excellence and the quality, and that quality work must be maintained even in uncertain times. And so it has developed a readiness assessment framework to help entities to check if they are suitable for staggered working hours. The assessment considers operational impact, coordination, safety, customer stakeholder interaction and satisfaction, employee independence, managerial capacity, and ICT readiness, as the other speaker spoke at the last committee meeting. The ministry, that readiness assessment also supports and ensures evidence-based implementation decisions, especially for future-based services. In terms of governance and accountability, the staggered working hours support service delivery in terms of levels of approval, core and coverage hours, requirements for attendance, punctuality, allowances, as well as references to disciplinary procedures. There's also an application process because persons have to be accountable, and so they have to formally apply and get approval from various levels. The Human Resource Department maintains records, and persons can appeal if there's an issue there, and they can also reapply. The conditions of service, sir, remains the same. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, we have a framework where there's a feedback loop from design to implementation, evaluation, and back to design. So we are learning as we go along. The indicators that we have, it's in your brief, but some of them are approvals, attendance, appeals, training sessions, and employee feedback. So we'll monitor those areas as we go along. And entities must engage in consultation, change management, and risk mitigation strategies. We did an implementation survey for the staggered working arrangements, ladies and gentlemen, and 70 entities were engaged. 53% have in government, in the public sector, have implemented staggered working hours. 49.3 have not yet implemented, and this is up to May this year. Approximately 30 entities have not only staggered working hours, but they have other flexible work arrangements, such as hybrid work, such as remote work. We also did a survey in October 2025, just looking at a smaller population size, 30 ministries, executive agencies, and other entities. The sample size was 10, and we did a random blind sample to preserve confidentiality and avoid identification bias. In that survey, 70% of employees surveyed benefited from flexible work modalities, the work from home and the staggered working hours. 80% of entities reported higher engagement, and 70% of engaged entities reported improved output. And this is self-reporting. 90% of surveyed entities reported stable or improved collaborations. What are the lessons we have learned so far? We need technology to have flexible work arrangements happen. We need leadership support. We need quick technology adoption. As we said at the beginning, we have to quickly learn how to learn. If we don't learn how to learn, we'll be behind the rest of the world. Upskilling of managerial and employees' capabilities to manage performance remotely, that's something that managers have to learn. And performance management is also a critical success factor. In terms of the digital infrastructure and business continuity, we know that there is a transition to more laptops and virtual meetings. Cloud collaboration and electronic document systems support remote work, and flexible work arrangements strengthen resilience during emergencies and disruption. In terms of the fuel crisis response framework, maintaining public service continuity while reducing continuing demand, we have 3 tiers. The hybrid operations, where you work from home and you also work at work. And then you move to tier 2, where fully remote operations, as what happens most times when we were having COVID. And tier 3, essential on-site services. There are some services that cannot be done at home, like gardening and others, cashiering and other important features like that. And so you still would have to have the essential online services. On-site services, please pardon me. The use of mixed modalities such as staggered working hours could be used with these 3 tiers, and this maintains the public service continuity while reducing commuting demand, as Mr. Cole spoke about. What are our recommendations? expand staggered working implementations across entities, urgently build learning capabilities of supervisors and employees to manage performance wherever, strengthen digital infrastructure and cybersecurity, expand telecommuting and other flexible work arrangements, integrate flexible work arrangements into business continuity planning as a national initiative. Ministry of Finance will also continue to give guidance, monitoring, and support. So in conclusion, for us, flexible work arrangements are a viable public sector modernization and business continuity strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Again, very, very insightful. A key takeaway from the presentation also is in terms of the ministries, departments, and agencies that have implemented some sort of flexible work hours arrangement, whether it's compressed hours or any other of the hybrid modalities, is the survey that you did, indicating approximately 70% of employees indicated that they benefited from the flexible work arrangement modality. 80% of staff said that they were more engaged, and 70% of organizations noted either significant or slight improvements in output since adopting flexible work arrangements. So thank you for that. I will move to the committee members. I know Member Phillips. Yes, over to you, Member Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a somewhat fulsome report by the Ministry of Finance, but listening to the presentations that went before when we last sat, especially the presentation from the Jamaica Information and Communications Technology Authority, and where it is that the government currently is now with the rollout of digitizing its documents and everything. And I find that many a times we implement policy without having dealing with the back end first, so that we can get the fullness of the benefit of the policy itself. And if we're going to be speaking about flexi hours or flexi work, then I think that what needs to be as a starting point is it productive? Are we getting the fullness of what the flexi work is supposed to? I mean, the JMA, and including your presentation, speak about certain categories of workers that would not benefit from it in a real sense, from working from home in instances. And while you send out these circulars, and we are trying it in different MDAs, I would suggest that you get a copy of the minutes and you read the presentation from the Jamaica Information and Communications Technology Authority. Because in their presentation, they spoke about not getting the full use of that flexi work, especially the work from home, because we're still operating on a paper-based system within government. So are we measuring productivity as part of this flexi work, or is it just a policy to see how it works? Because you're basically giving, if someone, you're really looking at a small percentage of your workforce that can work from home, who not having to deal with documentations. And I mean, my experience, not just as a parliamentarian, but as a business person, having to deal with government and deal with where you have to keep going back to different departments or agencies. Let's use the company office for an example. I mean, I have to know or hire a lawyer to go to company's office for me because I am the amount of man hours I would have to go by just submitting a form, being directed that this is what needs to be done. Then when you submit what has been told to be done, then somebody else who get it said to you, say, boy, we need an additional. Technology within government is way behind the private sector and every other arm of the state itself. And when I say state, meaning private sector and other entities. Until we get that up to speed, I don't know if you see it the same way, but the benefit and for us to be very productive in this flexi work, we're really just putting the cart before the horse. You know, and I feel like we're wanting to implement a policy because it is recommended without having the back end in a place that benefits those who were putting a part of the flexi work arrangement. We won't get the productivity out of them as what the World Bank document is telling us that we need to achieve and need to, you know. So is it that we are implementing a system when the rest of government is not really in that place for us to implement it in its full sum and to get the benefit out of it?
Okay, so while you have given the company office, for instance, as an example, there are other arms of the government that are in fact operating very well in terms of...
I'm sorry. Can you just a little closer to the mic? Because I know the point you're going to make, and I think it's important for the nation to hear the point definitively, because I will make a similar one as well.
No, you would have made it otherwise.
All right, I'm just indicating that there are some arms of the government that are operating very well in terms of the ability to work off-site, whether it's the hybrid, staggered working hours, work from home. COVID did in fact assist us in putting the employees in a position and the organizations to use the technology. As a result of COVID, across the public service, most of the ministries, the employees have laptops. They have systems in place to access the work. Yes, everything is not yet digitized, but it's underway. Some areas much more than others.
What percentage of government documents are now digitized?
All right, so I can't give you the percentage. I can do a check and get that back to you. I can't give you the percentage right now, but it is definitely underway, has been for some time. The Ministry of Finance, which is what we are more familiar with, has had to facilitate work from home outside of COVID based on some issues for a period, and therefore the ministry staff, all of the relevant staff, have laptops. We have a system in place where they connect to the overall system and are in fact able to work from home. Just to point out though that what we rolled out in February was staggered working hours. So flexible work arrangements are possible, have been in place for the public sector from 2014. A number of entities have in fact utilized it in various forms. But what we were rolling out in February was the staggered working hours, where we have periods starting from 6:30, basically an hour.
And don't get me wrong, Madam FS. What I want to be able to satisfy me that it is worthwhile going down that road in the way that we want it to. And I'm not against it. But productivity, how is it that we measure the productivity of those that are engaged in the system itself? Because just saying that we're having flexible work hours and work from home, if we are not being productive, and believe me, we keep hearing that productivity word being bandied around of late so often. If it is not productive, first, how is it that we do measure the productivity of the arrangement?
Thank you, Chair. If I may seek to provide some response, member. So this latest initiative under the flexible work arrangement, the staggered working hours, was actually rolled out in tandem with the innovation portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister that is charged with some of those subject matters you speak about. Question of productivity in particular, because it is recognized that it is not probably make a lot of sense if we're just doing the alternate work arrangement and we're not seeing in the end result where the service we are delivering is improved. Because that's it, at the end of the day, it is about improved public service delivery. And so the innovation portfolio led by Minister Marks really is our partner. While we are responsible for working hours for public sector workers, the productivity and the innovation portfolio falls there. And so the two are working together out of the recognition that one can't stand by itself. So those areas are certainly being addressed, member. I'm sure in due course, hopefully not too long from now, we'll be hearing more and seeing more pronouncements around how we actually measure productivity. Well, let me say, through the Productivity Center under the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for some time, there has been effort to really measure public sector productivity, services industry as we mostly are. And I think that has proven a little bit challenging globally. It's one of the more difficult measurements to achieve. But it is not something we have given up on, because we know productivity has to be ramped up if we are going to grow this economy and grow this country. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. And again, just to indicate for the benefits of those who might be listening online, etc., that there was in fact a survey carried out. So after 30 MDAs that have implemented the flexible work arrangements since February of this year, 10 were recently, up to 30 that were surveyed, 10 of them indicated, which is approximately 30%, where 77% of those organizations noted either significant or slight improvements in output since adopting the FWAs. Speaking for myself, I can say that when you look at the passport office members, if you have to renew, if any of you have renewed a passport this year or even last year, Jamaica is one of the few, Jamaica is one of about 3 countries in the world, one of about 3 countries in the world where you can actually apply for a passport and get that passport in the same day. Again, this is an online process. When you look at your, when you look at the what's TAG again? Tax Administration of Jamaica. Again, the system, they have gotten an online platform where you can go on and you can pay taxes, you can do all of these things. A lot of the other, in terms of, well, company as well, I don't know to the extent to which a lot of persons still need an attorney, depending on perhaps maybe the kind of companies that they're incorporating. But your basic registration can be done online as well. and they have boasted about that. You know, we're moving banking sectors as well. A lot of banks are moving online. If you like, there's one particular bank you can actually register. Hang on, no, but you can. You can register. You can open a bank account online on the same day as well. No, just to indicate. I know why. No, I know because they and if it's a zone visa about the banking. No, the point I'm making though, the members, is just that they, you know, it is a time for great innovation, and all the parties. We started out with the tech team out of the Office of the Prime Minister, and they did indicate that technology is a major feature, and it's important for us to get the technology right. But it is not stopping the rolling out and the implementation of flexible work arrangements, because as a government and as a people, we must recognize that it is the present and it is the future. And again, coming out of the presentation from the Ministry of Finance, is that to avoid disruption, to avoid shocks within the public and the private sector, it is important that all organizations become more adaptable to flexible work hours, compressed hours, work from home, whatever hybrid system that they want. Because if there is another disruption, whether it is petrol, whether it is COVID or some other disaster, then the country is going to shut down mode. And as a responsible entity, the Ministry of Finance is implementing policies, and they're already doing the tests and doing the surveys to show that it can work. And we do appreciate, as I indicated at the start, the presentation from the Manufacturing Association as it relates to the fact that the logistics and manufacturing industry, you do need persons on site. So there is that general acceptance that some careers require on site, but where flexible work arrangements can be made, it is in the interest of every organization. Because if your organization can't adapt, your organization will fail. And if a country doesn't adapt, then the country will fail. And I think it is a feature of this government that we want the country to succeed. Because when Jamaica succeeds, all Jamaicans succeed. Member Sivright, your mic has been on for some time. I will allow you. No, his mic was on, but he turned it off. Sorry, go. No, I'm saying no. Member Sivright was on, but then he turned it off. But do you want to go first, or you want Member Jackson will go then, and then you'll go after Member Jackson, sir.
I have a small question. You mentioned about work from home, or the other term you use, work from anywhere else. I like yeah. We were working from there already. But in respect to those working activities outside of the formal workplace, the issue of insurance and liability. For example, someone get hurt on the job at the work site. I think that's easy to deal with. How do you deal with somebody working at home and some hot water spill on them? Get a burn or a slip or any other situations like those. Are provisions made? I remember reading a case in Germany during the COVID period where there was a matter like that in court. So I'm curious to know, one, have we made provisions to deal with those? If so, what are they?
Thank you, Member Jackson. So, generally, on the employer-employee or worker management relationships and obligations, there is what is known as a duty of care. The employer is supposed to provide you with the environment that's amenable to your productive effort and must be safe. Certainly, it is a factor the government of Jamaica, as a large employer, has to take into account. But we are not, given all the variables of economy, size, and so on, and where we are on the development scale, we are not going to be able to do, as the case you referenced, Member Jackson, Germany, and a few other Scandinavian countries where we have surveyed, where they are able to actually set up in the home. The employer sets up, supports, help you to transform that home space into a workspace. And then you get into questions of liability and so on and so forth. That's the ideal, really. It's the ideal, but certainly as a country that is seeking to become developed and so on, those are matters to take. But we are certainly not there yet. However, we already have legislation in place that if some of those instances materialize, you know, under your social security legislation and so on, there are provisions that I'm sure the Ministry of Labour and Social Security will be able to indicate how some of those are to be treated. But it is not something that we disregard, because a safe workplace, wherever it is located, is a requirement under International Labour Organization convention and rules, so to speak.
You know, Mr. Jones, I asked that question, you know, not restricted to the Ministry of Finance or even the government service, but indeed even the private sector. For those of us sitting on this side, we, unfortunately, well, we wouldn't say unfortunately, but rightfully so, when employees run into situations of injury, in those work from home situation, and there's a dragged out bureaucratic process of how their injuries are dealt with, they end up come to us, appeal to us for either some direction or some intervention in order to ameliorate those situations. Because those circumstances are not mere administrative issues. They are real life, real time situation that they have to deal with. Injury can't continue to work, possible loss of income, family stress, all of those things. So it's not a theoretical or notional issue. And as we contemplate a shift in the work arrangement for persons, I believe it's imperative that we factor those things to go concurrently with the structured work arrangement that we, as part of the structured work arrangement that we're contemplating. For the record, I do support the whole idea of multiplicity of modules or modalities for work, given the period we are living in. You know, so I think it's imperative that we as government try to make sure that all the pieces are put together at the very early stage, not in a reactive way down the road when people are in the middle of the situation.
Thank you, Member. I think Sir Jones, to you and the team from the Ministry of Finance, and to our private sector members who are here as well, I think one important consideration is going forward, what kind of policy do we put in place or do we recommend to compensate employees working remotely or working at home? So one of the concerns persons have raised is that, okay, well, I'm not coming into office, but I'm paying for my internet. Or I'm not coming into office, but I'm paying for my electricity. So I think also the consideration should be given in terms of policy directive. So, you know, in the government sector, when you travel for work, so you're leaving Kingston and you're going to Montego Bay, Trelawney, for example, there is a stipend that's given based on the mileage. So perhaps, again, a part of the incentive for work from home. You know, I know on the one hand, some employers might say, well, you're working from home, so therefore you're not spending the gas money, or you're not spending this or you're not spending that. You know, or we're saving you 2 hours in traffic then, because you can just roll out of bed or then roll into the computer room or onto the device or something. But I do believe that going forward, in terms of incentivizing work from home, because if employers are benefiting from not having a break in productivity, if they're benefiting from continuity of services, and business is doing well, then perhaps there well, I believe we ought to look at a sort of compensation. You know, I'm going to offer X per kilowatt hour or X per something. So we could look at that, or we will cover the internet services or part of it because of. So we could just look at that and see what kind of framework to compensate persons for utilizing their utilities and their gas or whatever else it is that they're utilizing whilst at home doing the company's work. So, Member Severite.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two very quick questions for the Ministry of Finance, Financial Secretary, and Mr. Jones. So the ministry brief indicated that 77% of organizations that have, implemented flexible work arrangements either experience either significant or slight improvements in output, right? And 80% reported higher employee engagement, and 90% said collaboration remained the same or improved. And I believe you said about 30 entities have implemented flexible work arrangements to date, correct?
It's the staggered work overall? Overall.
Yes. Okay, so the question is then, how confident is the ministry that these findings are sort of representative of the wider public service? And when will Parliament, of course, receive objective performance data to work with, such as application processing times, customer satisfaction, absenteeism, service delivery metrics, that sort of thing? And if possible, if you could probably name some of these entities that have adopted flexible work arrangements, we would certainly appreciate that. So that's question one. The second question relates to fuel savings versus productivity. I recall the last meeting where Dr. Wayne Henry here, PIOJ et al., right? And he was the principal justification for expanding flexible work arrangements. It said it's to mitigate the impact of the fuel crisis. Of course, we're in changing geopolitical, conditions, but can the ministry, or has the ministry sought to quantify the expected reduction in fuel consumption and also its impact on foreign exchange, or do you think it's probably going to be negligible in the main? So those are the two questions. Thank you.
I'll take the first one. Examples of entities include Ministry of National Security, NEPA, JAMPRO. There are some of those entities that have sought and secured approval to implement. There's another part to the question that I wanted to, in terms of the measurement. So the policy that we rolled out with effect from February makes provision for a 6-month review, a full review after 6 months. What we did there was just a check, a spot check. So we wouldn't, in a conclusive way, membership right, able to say, the confidence level just yet, because about October or so, we expect to be in that position where we can, having done the full monitoring and evaluation, applying the instrument, the formal instrument of M&E, then we'll be able to tell you in a more confident way how things are looking in that regard. But certainly it is something that we are very much interested in, because that's the only way we can know if it works or not. So, yeah.
Yes, and Member Severite had a second point to his question as it relates to the fuel consumption savings and how that might affect foreign exchange, if at all.
Okay, so the staggered working hours rolled out in February was not directly related to the fuel crisis. It was an effort to expand the flexible work arrangements. As indicated, the ability for the public sector to do this has been in place from 2014, but it was not taken up wide scale since then. Just a few entities really were operating with it. So this did in fact precede the fuel crisis, but we we'll be looking to see if we can do any measurement in relation to the impact that the staggered working arrangements or the just flexible work hours has been able to provide.
I'm sorry, Madam Financial Secretary, could you just repeat, please, for the benefit of Hansard? You could just start by indicating, I started at the point where you said that the flexible work arrangements being adopted, the new policy as of February, was not intended at this particular time to deal with the fuel crisis, but more so to just prepare the public sector for any disruptions and to maintain productivity and then go into the rest of it. For the
right, so we were trying to expand the take-up of the flexible work arrangements, which have been in place since 2014. We did recognize the traffic situation, separate apart from fuel, the traffic situation in the mornings and the evenings. And so we felt that this was a means of reducing the congestion. And so that would have been some of the reasons behind pushing this at the time that it was. The staggered working hours will not significantly impact the fuel because you're still coming in on that one. It's just that you're coming in at a different point. Might take a little less time. Yes, it will impact from there. But it would be the other arrangements that will have a greater impact. The work from home or hybrid would have a greater impact in terms of the fuel.
Yes. Just one more for Richard Cole, the Jamaica manufacturers, and certainly given your past experience locally and internationally in the private sector. As you know, many of the major companies of the world, Amazon, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Tesla, decided to rewind their flexible work arrangements and literally ordered staff to get back in their offices because they felt that productivity got a hit. You have any thoughts on it, Richard? Because it's if the most successful companies were say, listen, this has to stop. Everybody needs to get back in office. This work from home and this flexible arrangement is creating chaos. You think maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit? Let me know.
Not that we need to pump the brakes. I think it requires proper oversight, planning, governance. You can't jump into it without the proper planning. And I think that may have been the case with the likes of Amazon. So we can learn from those mistakes and make sure that if we're going to engage our staff in working remotely, that we have proper measures in place, KPIs, performance metrics, and the use of AI. I think there's a massive opportunity to utilize AI to make sure that we are getting the output that we need.
Thank you. And again, just to indicate, Member Steve, right, as a part of the presentation, the Ministry of Finance did in fact indicate that for flexible work hours or any sort of hybrid work arrangements, whether it's work from home or just working remotely generally, for it to work, it does require the necessary tech, it does require the leadership support, it does require quick tech adaptation, it does require also an upskilling of managerial capabilities. You know, because again, the companies you indicated, a big part of the breakdown would have been management capabilities, you know, the sort of adaptability required of workers generally. And if Jamaicans truly want to prove that we're little about Watalawa and that we are the most resilient nation, especially coming after the Hurricane Melissa experience, then it behoves all of us to ensure that we're an entity, we're a workplace, decides that we're going to be doing flexible work hours, hybrid, work from home, remote, and so forth. The sort of maturity that is needed, that you are home but you are still working, you're not home playing video games, or you're not home, you know, I mean, there's a word in Jamaica which says skylarking, you know, or exactly, being consumed by other things, as Member Jackson noted. But, you know, so it requires a sort of managerial capabilities and the sort of comprehension and maturity of workers generally, and understanding that this is still your bread and butter. And if the company fails, if the organization fails, then you fail, your family fails. And this is why it's important that the government has taken this approach. You know, in speaking to the Prime Minister as it relates to updating on the discussions that we're having here at the Economy and Production Committee, an important feature of the government is that Jamaica must succeed. You know, and whenever I hear the Prime Minister state, government must succeed because all Jamaicans must succeed, it's important. So even the formulation of this committee is to get the ideas, the thoughts, the views from the public and the private sector as to what better policies can be put in place to ensure that we have suitable arrangements in place for whatever work modality that is needed for the future, so that Jamaica does not fail, that there is continuity. Again, the performance management was indicated as well as being a critical factor to the success of hybrid models. Thank you. Member Williams, I believe you wanted to make certain interventions as relates to the presentation by the Ministry of Finance.
My apologies. So if I'm to understand Madam FS, the staggered work arrangements were introduced not as a fuel cost reduction measure, but more so it had a productivity objective. Is that correct? So, and I just wanted to ask, so we had done or carried out a feasibility or an analysis, some studies to assess some forecasting, so to speak, to assess the impact it would have had on productivity. So, for example, was there a forecasting, some studies, some analysis, or predictable model that says, look here, if we were to implement staggered working hours in the public sector, in 1 year, if it was implemented in this particular mode, it could improve productivity by 1% or 0.5% across the public sector? Just a question.
No, we did not have such a study. What we did recognize is that a number of persons were saying they were spending 2 hours in traffic. So from the standpoint of removing that from the equation, it should lend itself to more production, to greater production. If you reduce the time you are spending commuting.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, understandable. So now that because the terms of reference of this committee, if I'm to understand correctly, is that we're seeking to ascertain, inquire into whether the introduction of flexible work arrangements, hybrid work arrangements, to what extent it can impact or impact positively our energy bill, if I'm correct, to see to what extent we can reduce the dependence,
No, right, no. So again, not just that. The terms of reference of this committee is as it relates to increased productivity generally. Increased productivity, yeah. How does that affect the economy, etc. But you have to remember, so what we're looking at now is the gas feature, the petrol feature,
yes,
concerning the geopolitics.
I stand corrected, Mr. Chair.
Part of it, but just
yes.
no.
Our general terms of reference is
right.
It gears towards productivity, economy, improving productivity.
There you go. But, increased productivity generally. Yeah, so what Madam Financial Secretary and the team for the Ministry of Finance has indicated is that when you look at when they started the second tier of the policy that was implemented in 2014, there wasn't that much take-up on that policy. They implemented a second phase of that policy, and that second phase started in February of 2026. A big part of the flexible work hours or scheduled work hours, that modality, when a part of the consideration was reduced productivity in organizations occasioned by the traffic congestion. So persons were spending 2 hours in traffic, an hour and a half and so forth to get to work within a 14 to 20 kilometer radius. That was affecting productivity. There's a difference they've indicated as it relates to staggered work hours, because in staggered work hours, you still have to go into work. So they're not looking at fuel consumption in that part, but productivity generally within the workspace. It is the hybrid or the work from home or the work remotely that would see a reduction in fuel consumption. And a part of the recommendation coming out of this committee is that a study be done, Madam Finsek, is that a study be done to look at within the long-term or short-term range, and you will know how you do your surveys, how would the work from home part of the model? Because again, flexible work arrangements includes compressed hours, where you could go in 3 days a week, but you're working 12 hours or 10 hours to get your 40-hour week, 3 or 4 days. So that's a part of the compressed work model. Then the staggered work model, where some persons go in at 6:30, some might go in at 12 and so forth. Again, minimizing traffic inflow. And then you have also the work from home model. Now that is the model that would look at petrol savings, etc., because you wouldn't be going in at all. So a part of the recommendation of this committee is that a study be done to see what fuel, what petrol savings would inure to the benefit of the government, and how would that also affect our foreign exchange as well. So when you consider the wider geopolitical factors going forward, and we don't see it slowing down anytime soon, how would working from home arrangements, now not the compressed model or not the staggered hours, because you still have to go in as you've indicated, how does that impact the fuel? What is the metrics that you would use to sort of do this test or do this survey? Are you looking at, well, if 10 persons are going in per week and they're each spending $20,000 for gas for the week and they're saving this amount? I mean, are you looking at it a broader perspective? What is the model you would do? But that is a recommendation of this committee that we look at that study so we can get the answers done. So that would satisfy the members' concerns as well.
Yeah, but in my view, Chairman, that would require a multi-agency sectoral approach, integrated approach with all the various agencies, because JMA, PIOJ, all the different agencies would have to come together, because it's not simplistic, it's a complex approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Williams. Member Phillips.
And to that, Chairman, that review productivity, because you can save on petrol and still have low productivity, which gives you a zero-sum effect, right? But I just want to ask Sir Jones, coming back to the report, the 77% of organizations noted either significant or slight improvements in output since adopting the FWAs. And you mentioned that you really have no results yet because you're going to do your review in a 6-month period. So I just want to ask, what indices did they use in this to determine the output, the improvements in output? Chairman?
Right. Thank you, Member Phillips. So, as indicated in the presentation, was self-reporting. So we did that simple survey. Again, in Jamaican parlance, we're just testing the pulse, seeing what's going on out there, and we asked some direct, few and simple questions, and they would so report back that they have seen that.
Okay, so it's really just a self-reporting.
Right.
So the true report test of if there are any improvements is right. Your 6 months.
It's to come in 6 months.
Your 6-month review.
When that would be a scientific measure at that time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And you know, Chairman, again, I keep on saying that if we keep doing things the same way, expecting a different results, then we're really not improving. And I hear your comments on Jamaica should not fail, right? And, you know, we are in total agreement. That's why we're here, is to, you know, protect that. But listening to the presentation and your comments, you know, I agree we need to protect it, that it doesn't fail. But what quality is it that we are going to leave for the Jamaican people? And even in what we're discussing here, it's going to take a culture change in some instances, management change, just doing things differently. And that's why I come back to productivity. Because if, as the presentation before the last meeting speak about the technology and being able to, it spoke about the e-signature and even persons, some agencies not using it, still requiring persons to come in to do the signature, then you're really, you know, so even legislation here needs to catch up with what is being implemented. But I come back to the point of, you know, we keep on talking about the 2 hours in traffic and everything. And when, I'm sure Mr. Koh and his team can probably relate to what I'm about to say, is that when you're trying to fix one thing without fixing the other components, then you're not really achieving suboptimal of that what you're trying to fix. So if it is that we're trying to reduce non-productive time in traffic, then as a government, and I'm not government meaning the government that you represent, but just overall, how are we trying to fix the public transport to meet the needs of what we're trying to do? How is it that we're designing roads and construction of roads, dealing with stoplights and various other things to meet that we allow persons to spend less time in traffic? You know, so it's going to take a coordinated, join-up approach of government, not just the Ministry of Finance trying to implement this, but how is it the Ministry of Transport, how is it the Ministry of Works, and just government on a whole, working to try and connect the dots to achieve that greater productivity that we speak about. You know, and I think that is a broader discussion that needs to be had. In how it is, yes, we can talk about the spark and this, but we still, after decades, still speaking about productivity and the lack of productivity. Yeah? We might get little spikes here and there, but then we implement policies, but then the underlying foundations are not catching up with the policy to make it what we want it to be. And I think this committee itself, I mean, this is a starting point, but I think there's a wider conversation to be had, because I always remind persons who sit on that side, from the ministry departments and agencies, we are not here to criticize, but we are here to help with the construct to make sure that the policies that we create in Parliament, that they are workable to help them to produce maximum, you know. And I think that we need to, as a committee, have that conversation in a broader sense in how it is that we can help to drive productivity by the policies that we create inside here and the policies of different departments and agencies to drive it, because it is something that is really holding us back.
Thank you for that intervention, member. So I believe a recommendation coming out of the statements or the comments by the member would be for us to have the Ministry of Transport here and to have the One Road Authority, when they are instituted, to have them here, because I do take the point and I agree. So you are the underlying problem that led them to the flexible work hours, the traffic situation. What are the plans going forward for the roads, traffic, transport generally, etc.? I do know that, I saw in the paper where Minister Vaz and the team at the Ministry of Transport, where they received high marks for the rollout of the rural school bus system. And I know Minister Vaz had indicated that this would have been his last term, but if it is, well, I'm sure he will have another bright idea going forward as it relates to, the whole country has acknowledged the success of Minister Vaz and the rural school bus system. I mean, there's a beautiful front page article, very, very positive. So, listen, where there's success, we laud the success. But I am supporting Michael's, sorry, I am supporting Member Phillips' point that it would be good for the minister or the minister's team to give us the next bright idea as it relates to solving traffic congestion in this country, and of course working in tandem with the One Road Authority when it comes into place. Coming out of the members' presentation as well is, and I agree that cultural shift. So how do we, as a people, I refer to that cultural expression, the skylarking. You're working from home, but it is not a license to get involved, caught up in the skylarking and everything else. So how do we move forward with that cultural shift? Again, it's training employers, the managerial capabilities that you indicated, upskilling everyone in addition with the IT factors. So again, that is something that we can look at, but how do we drive at that cultural shift to ensure that work from home, as a part of the flexible work arrangement, that it is in fact productive or does not diminish productivity. Because if it diminishes productivity, well then, what would have been the point of it all? All right, thank you so much to the Ministry of Finance, and we look forward to your updates and looking at the recommendations made by the committee. We now move to the Small Business Association of Jamaica, and here to make the presentation is Mr. Kevin Frith. Welcome, and thank you for your time, Mr. Frith.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So we have approximately 425,000 small businesses registered in Jamaica. And then we have about 8 in every 10 employment is created by small businesses. And we have approximately over 40% of the national income is through small businesses. And then we have thousands of informal businesses. Micro and small business that are not registered. Now, most of our small businesses, they require a physical space to operate from, and we find that it will be difficult for majority of them to actually work from home. And when you look at the mix of small businesses, they have a lot of cook shop operation, you have a lot of retail operation, light manufacturing, and in the transportation sector. Now, some of the challenges we find with some of the businesses that could actually operate remotely is that they don't have the resources to, okay. All right, so we find that some of them that can actually operate remotely don't have the resources, so they lack laptops that they could use, or they have home internet issues or even backup power issues. And then we find that there will be challenges in terms of who will compensate for the space being used or the increase in electricity bill, whether by use of air condition or whatever equipment that they would need to use from home. And then there are no clear guidelines or remote work contract or even data protection in terms of the kind of information that they would have to take home, or that it's somewhat challenging to the business owner to release such information to the employee to have in their possession working from home. And then We have flexible work, keep staff who face long commutes or care or duty for their loved one, which is a plus for them, that they're able to stay home and look after their children or their parents or whatever that may be, but and then they would save in commuting time. SMEs with remote capacity continue to operate during certain crises, as we have come through the COVID crisis. And then now we have this fuel situation, which would help with the travel disruption. And then we have the digital initiative, which the government supported tools that could upskill SME for permanently, for long-term resilience. Okay. All right, so some of the key constraints is that many SME rely on daily physical presence based on their operation, retail, service, production, manufacturing, but fuel costs directly reduce net income. Opportunity, hybrid remote model can reduce fuel dependency if done in an organized, structured approach, promote the cost-saving benefits, and implement policies that will support the shift to remote work where possible. So some of our practical recommendations for the committee is look at a fuel voucher pilot program for small businesses who can work remotely, or tax waiver and interest, or data plans for SME that can work remotely. Some of our medium-term ideas are to share co-working hubs that in different locations, that for persons who lack the capacity at home, they could possibly get whether internet or other tools they may need from a co-working space, or to model remote work policy templates that would also deal with occupational safety and health. So what is SBAJ committing to do is that we want to help with sharing information with our members and other entrepreneurs how to conserve on fuel usage. We also want to help train some of our members and in the wider small business community how to deal with remote working, as in working from home. And then we want to also start to collect real-time data on the impact of the increase in the fuel costs, and partner with telecom providers to have group rates for data connectivity for SMEs. Now, our position is that we don't need a perfect plan, we just need a practical start. Thank you.
You can turn. All right, thank you, Mr. Frith, for that presentation. It's interesting in terms of the notation that you have over 400,000 small businesses registered, and that most of them perhaps would not have the framework in terms of internet capabilities and other resource constraints. But we've noted the recommendations that you've made in terms of how that could nonetheless translate into a suitable working environment that could take on some of the considerations of this committee. Let me move to members. Any questions, comments?
Chair, I think just coming out of a presentation of both the JME, Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association and Small Business Association, shows that it's really the term flexible work arrangements will work differently across different sectors. You know, the manufacturers who need physical bodies there, but then management, just depending on how management, and it comes down to management. So I think, and overall, which I think the Ministry of Finance alluded to earlier, is to see not only how it works within government, but how the impact itself has on the wider economy and those savings that we speak about. Because in both sectors, it spoke about the cost of fuel that impacts the overall cost with their members and just the economy itself. So I think a wider look has to be taken on that cost, because when you look at our import bill, fuel is a number one cost to that import bill. So the issue of fuel, lack of productivity by the time we spend in traffic and all of those things has to be looked at overall. I mean, just outside of what we're doing for government MDAs with the Flexi Work Week, but how it also impacts productivity within the private sector and small business.
Yeah, agreed, member. You know, I was at a conference recently, and one of the takeaways from that conference was that data is king. You know, data is the new currency. So with all that we do, the sort of data that is needed to determine, again, which model works best, based on, is it a small business, is it a ministry, is it a department, is it an agency, is it a manufacturing sector? So what model works best, and what is the empirical evidence you know, that is going to drive the final recommendations coming out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, coming out of the Ministry of Finance and Public Sector. So data is king, and it's good that we have started the discussion at this level. So far, we've had several entities that have done presentations, and very insightful presentations. They have certainly afforded us as a committee an opportunity to make recommendations. Coming out of this morning, we've also seen the need to have other entities that were not on the list, and how they also affect productivity, such as Ministry of Transport and One Road Authority as well. So unless there's any other comments, yes, Member Severide, I'll pause there.
I'm hoping that the bartenders and the juice vendors won't be working from home, correct, Mr. Fred? Yes?
No, they won't. As he did indicate that he has over, he did indicate that they have about over 400,000 registered small businesses, and that for many of them, because of the nature of their operations, they physically need to be present as well. So it is a liken to the manufacturing sector in that regard. Yes, Member Phillips.
Chair, I mean, since we're going to continue the conversation on the productivity, as Mr. Jones alluded, that the Ministry of Productivity, the new ministry, right? So they will all innovation and productivity.
Yes, they are on the list, and in fact, Minister Marks has indicated that that she would be here herself when the ministry comes, because again, she wants it. I was very pleased. She indicated that she looks forward to sharing the ideas being generated and the sort of input that the government is making to increase productivity, and when you look at the use of technology as well, it's really interesting. So she indicated that she would have no difficulty coming as well to share and to hear any recommendations coming from the committee as well.
And as soon as the Ministry of Finance has completed that review, I think it would be good to get an update on it to see how it is that we impact the productivity of its members.
Certainly, and also the Ministry of Finance will be working with other entities, not just governmental, but also the private sector, as they devise the model to look at the fuel savings from the work from home or work remote. What kind of fuel consumption are we looking at, and how does that impact on the foreign exchange as well? So that will be a part of the study. And I know that obviously Mr. Ko will be a part of that as well, given his expertise. Mr. Ko?
Yeah, there was an article recently published, a Trinidadian article, that spoke about a recent survey done by the Economic Commission of Latin and Caribbean communities. And it found that congestion-related fuel charges cost 2.2 billion Trinidadian dollars annually, and the number of hours that commuters spent each year commuting in congestion-related areas was 793 hours. And one thing I think we haven't spoken about is what the impact that does to your physical state and your mental state. What is the cost beyond fuel, non-communicable diseases? Can that be, or should that be quantified? So anyway, as we look to do this research, it would be interesting to perhaps engage with this organization to see how they carried out the research and what other findings there were that we can learn from as we engage to do our research.
Okay, all right, so we'll add that to the list of recommendations. Thank you. So again, further recommendation to the Ministry of Finance and Public Services, who is the agency that's the department that's spearheading this initiative, so that we could make contact with ECLAC and to look at their study and some of the measurements they use in determining determining the conclusions that they would have made, what drove the kind of data that they were looking at. And if needs be, you could reach out to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade as well to make the necessary contacts with the individuals at ECLAC. Thank you, Mr. Ko. So members, unless there is any other business, at this time, let us just to, by now, all members would have received the minutes of the last meeting, and I trust that we have perused it. If we are in agreement, could we have someone to approve? Yes, Member Phillips, seconded. Member Severite's hand is up. Thank you so much. To the members of the public and private sector who are here this morning, we want to thank you for your service to your organizations and also your service to Jamaica. The discussion has been very insightful. You're certainly giving us further things to consider, and I want to thank you for your time as well. To members of the committee, I want to thank you for your service to the Parliament and to your constituencies and to the country as we look forward ahead with these robust discussions as it relates to the economy and productivity of our nation and measures that can be put in place vis-a-vis the hybrid work schedules or the flexible work arrangement that can be made. I want to wish you all the very best for the rest of the day. Members, lunch is downstairs, and we will see you at 2 p.m. unless you are in the 12:30 committee meeting, which comes right after this. Thank you all. Members, while you leave, just to indicate for the record that the next meeting is, the committee is adjourned for a date to be agreed. We are going into the summer session, and so during that time we will speak with the other agencies, departments, ministries, as well as members of the private sector who will be invited next. So if we could just send all those invitations over the summer period, and then we will agree a date to be convened for the next meeting. Members, that date will be emailed, sent to you via email. But again, enjoy the summer vacation as well.
It's a devastating thought that if the warming continues, some of our richest environments and the species that live in them will be under threat. And it's not just the non-human world. We as a species will not be immune either. But how can we possibly know what the future holds? Scientists don't pretend that they can predict specific changes to the climate with absolute certainty. What they can do is calculate the likelihood that they will occur. It's here at the Met Office's Hadley Centre in Exeter that we can find the answer to some of the big questions. This supercomputer can perform 10 billion calculations per second, each one contributing to a model that scientists like Peter Cox can use to predict our future climate.
Climate models essentially have come out of weather forecasting models. They're run for much longer periods, they're run for hundreds of years rather than days, but they contain all the complexity. They contain clouds, they contain rainfall patterns, they contain winds, and climate models also have to contain slower components like how the vegetation and the soil respond to change and how the oceans change.
The model is like a virtual world, a sort of flight simulator, where everything from the melting ice in the Arctic to the formation of clouds in the atmosphere and the temperatures of the oceans are represented by formulae. It can give us the probability that future events may happen. For instance, what are the chances of our having another major heat wave like the one of summer 2003? And as the planet warms up, can we expect heat waves more often?
It's impossible to put any particular climatic or weather event down to climate change alone. But what you can do is say that climate change affects the chance of an event occurring. And the very extreme 2003 summer we suffered in Europe and killed many people in France, for example, is a case in point. That's something that is a rare event now. It's a 1 in 200 year type of event. But that is twice as likely as it was before we started to change the climate. And by 2040, because of future climate change, it will become a 1 in 2 year event, almost the norm. By 2080, we'll consider that a cool year.
One place where the Hadley model is predicting increasing temperatures is the Ningxia province in northern China. Not good news for a land where the desert is expanding. Over the last 20 years, there's been a marked decline in rainfall. Powerful winds have driven the thin soil into dunes, smothering fields and villages. In Bujing, many villagers have deserted their homes for the cities. Those who are left behind, like Guanling, must endure a daily battle with the encroaching dunes.
There wasn't so much sand here before, but now the wind is blowing more and more sand into the village.
I remember when I was a child, the environment was really good. Then in 1973, our fields went dry, the grass stopped growing, the dust storms came, the sand covered everything, and began to affect our lives in every way. When I get home, if I don't brush the sand away, I can't get into my house. This takes a lot of time, so it affects my work. There have been a lot of people who have left the village already. Well, they want to improve their lives, so they've moved to a better place with water and much better conditions.
Those villages that aren't swamped by sand are suffering from severe drought. This village, Sigo, has not had a harvest for 3 years. Professor Lin Erda is working for the Chinese government, trying to discover how badly affected the local people are.
Can you remember when you were young? Was it the same situation as today?
When I was a child here, it was also sometimes very dry, but it's become more serious in recent years.
How have the crops been recently?
The harvest was very bad.
Why was that?
There's been no rainfall. There's been no rain for 3 years. We can only depend on the food given by the government. And without crops, we have no income. We can't buy anything, and we have no money to spend.
When the winds pick up, the dry soil can quickly create a sandstorm. Such storms are already afflicting cities like Beijing. If the drying continues, this will only get worse. The bleak realities of climate change are being felt all over the world. And yet, despite so much evidence, some people refuse to believe that human activity is the cause of the changes we're seeing. The climate modelers at the Hadley Centre believe that they have proof. They factor both natural climate variations and our carbon dioxide emissions into their model to see which best explains the changes in temperature over the last 120 years. The key question, of course, is how can we distinguish between variations due to natural causes and those variations of the climate that are induced by human activity? And the key thing that convinced me, at any rate, was a graph like this one that we marked out on the floor that had been prepared from climate scientists like Professor Peter Cox. Now, explain to us the significance of this graph.
Okay, what we're going to do is to take a walk through time. And the first thing to note as we walk through is that the climate is naturally variable. It's a spiky beast. Occasionally there's a downward trend that's associated with a volcano going off that cools the system down because of the dust it throws up. But generally it just oscillates around. And then we get to a period around about 1910 where you can start to see an upward trend, a warming of the climate, a global warming if you like. And the issue is, what caused that? Was that humans or was that natural? So what we do to try and work that one out is to take a climate model and to put in the various factors. And what we can see with this green curve here is a climate model that includes just these natural factors. So this is when volcanoes go off and the output from the sun. And you can see that the green curve can reproduce reasonably well this mid-century warming. So up to this point, you could reasonably argue climate variation can be explained by natural factors. But as we move on, we can see that's no longer true as you get to the latter part of the 20th century. From about 1970 onwards here, you can see the red curve, the observed temperatures, and the green curve really beginning to diverge. And the question again is, what caused this recent warming? So we run the model again and we include human factors. Particularly we include the greenhouse effect, mostly from carbon dioxide that comes from fossil fuel burning. And then we get this yellow curve and we can see, as well as reproducing the mid-century warming, we get this recent, rather rapid warming reproduced. And that tells us two things. One is that the model looks realistic, it looks like the real world. And the second thing, the model tells us that this recent warming is due to human beings.
So there you have it. There seems little doubt